Roxo Media House.
Welcome back to Fortitude, folks. We already got a dancer in the house. Welcome back, Brenton. You are Brenton. I am JW. Fortitude FW coming at you, season 2. Welcome to the CapTech studio. You obviously taking a fancy to it, sir. But we have in the house, in the CapTech studio, Mr. Dr. J Mack Slaughter.
Don't you dare call me Mr.
Indeed.
After everything I've been through.
Respect.
Yeah.
Welcome, J Mack. We've known you a while.
Yeah.
You're a hell of a guy. You're a Fort Worthian. You got an incredible story, which we're going to delve into now.
Cool.
So
cool.
Grateful for your time.
No energy here, man.
Yes.
None whatsoever.
Louise.
Is it all? It's all natural. I know because I know you. But what gives you all this fire all the time?
Methamphetamines.
Excellent. Yes.
No, man, I don't know. I have a ton of energy, and people are like, when do you rest? You're involved in so many things. And, I honestly don't rest too much, but I rest different parts of my brain. There are times when I'm just like fully activated in doctor mode, and then I switch from that to being just fully activated in nonprofit mode, and then fully activated in social media, fully activated in being dad. And I just I pour myself into these different things, and it feeds my energy in every other realm, if that makes sense.
You are a lover of life, no doubt.
I am.
Is it healthy or does it ever get unhealthy where you're like, honey, too much energy is going to here, not enough to here kind of thing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because I get very hyper focused. And so,
yeah,
sometimes my wife needs to redirect me and
Excellent.
be like, I love how passionate you are about these different projects, but remember me, you need to focus on. And I'm like, you're so right, honey.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into Rebecca here shortly,
Yeah.
but you began singing around the age of 3.
Yeah.
And this is in Fort Worth, correct?
Yeah, totally.
So your parents and your immediate family discovered this kid is not like other kids. He's got a musical gift. And the way that I know you is you can walk into a room now, if there were a guitar or a piano sitting around and just complete strangers, you're the kind of guy, Brenton, that could sit down and just start singing and playing, and everybody's like,
yeah,
this guy's pretty good. Who is this guy? It's
he
awesome.
came by that kind of naturally, right? Was your mom have that? She was sound or did something?
Yeah, well,
with music?
both of my parents really. So my mom approached music from a very intellectual background, and she went to Indiana University to get a major in music. And at the time, that was one of the best places that you could go to in the country. And my dad was just completely self-taught, just passionate songwriter, and was playing in bars and stuff like that. And so my dad's kind of passion and aimlessness in life was kind of reeled in by my mom's kind of more intellectual and structured thing. And so it only made sense that as we were growing up around all of this music, my mom became kind of the manager of the band and was like, you're going to wear these matching outfits. I have 2 older sisters that sing and dance and play instruments, and my dad sings and plays. Here's the funny thing about my mom, though, is she has terrible stage fright. So she wanted to be behind the sound console in the audience, but she was the brains of the whole operation.
Oh, yeah.
And then my dad was the performer up there who was just wherever you put me, I'm going to play. I'm cool with it,
Oh, right on.
So you performed as a kid growing up. You did Casa. You attended Country Day School.
Yeah.
But you were a very big figure in Casa Manana, Sound of Music, The Who's Tommy.
Yeah.
These are some of the few. I'm sure there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
When you were 15, you auditioned for a boy band put together by Kid Craddock's morning show, correct?
Yeah,
Can you walk us through that? Yeah, well, rest in peace indeed. So
yeah, well, I mean, to me, it was just another audition. It was a family friend who was like, "Hey, I heard about this thing on the radio. You should audition for it. J Mack could be perfect for it." And I show up to Valley View Mall in Dallas, you know, and there are a ton of radio fans there, and they announce me on stage, and I'll never forget it, man, because there are a lot of people that are auditioning that are 18 and 20 and 23 and all this stuff, and then Kelly Raspberry from the radio show goes, "Every boy band needs a baby," and they invited me to come up on stage, and people were like, already, and I was like, I could get used to this.
How old were you at the time?
I was supposed to be 16, but I lied. I was 15.
Wow.
I made up a fake birthday instead of actually just pushing back my birthday by 1 year and making me a year old. I made up some fake birthday, and so I'd always forget it and call my mom and be like, "What's my birthday? What's my sign?" They asked me for some magazine. "What's my sign?" Like an idiot.
Was this this past the new edition? Was this boys or what was it called? New Kids on the Block.
New Kids on the Block. We're all so old. We know about all these boy bands, right?
There were later boy bands.
Yeah,
so what
it was right
what kind
when-
of genre was it? Or
Right
era?
when like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC were blowing up.
Okay,
It was very
okay.
clear that like there was a formula there. And so other people were falling in
You
line.
were like
90 degrees, all
Joey
that
or
stuff.
whatever, man. Like that's they all had that little one
Yeah.
for sure.
The
Exactly,
the
yeah,
band in
they-
question, Sons of Harmony.
Sons of Harmony. Sounds like a gospel group. Like
It
who
does.
named
and
that?
if you look it up, you can
On
find
bikers,
you can
like a
find
biker
you can
son
find
of
a
Sons of Anarchy.
Seriously.
Makes
Yeah.
a boy band.
Yeah.
if you look up Sons of Harmony, you find yourself in the band, but you
Yeah.
also find a Christian group that goes under
I
the
believe
same
it.
moniker and
I
does
believe it.
Christian music as
That's
well.
where
So-
it belongs. That name belongs in that world.
So how big was Sons of Harmony? Because you open up for Bon Jovi,
Yeah.
Beyonce,
Yeah.
Destiny's Child. So how
Yeah.
big did you get, and what kind of stuff did you see? during
you
that?
know, we are because we were created on a radio show. They literally had the audience vote on who was going to be in the band and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I was invited to be in the band, But our very first show, 4,000 people were there. First show we've ever played. We're so nervous.
No kidding.
We're in like matching red jumpsuits.
Right on.
We're dancing on stage and
Yeah.
stuff, and 4,000 people are there. And so it went from there to playing, Dallas Main Street for Y2Ks,
Right.
New Year's Eve, and 75,000 people are there. Granted, they didn't all come for us,
Yeah.
but 75,000 people were there that we got to perform in front of. And then the biggest like normal audiences that we performed in front of were when we were touring with Destiny's Child, and we were performing regularly in front of like 20,000, something like that.
That's
and
cool.
it's just, it's an energy that you can't get anywhere else. It's the
big
craziest
auditoriums, big
Yeah.
stages. We're all across the country,
Yeah.
international.
It was mostly throughout the Southwest
okay.
area. Yeah,
Very
They
good.
kind of picked us up. There's another boy band called like BB Mac of all things. And
Yeah.
some of the guys got sick from that, and we had opened up for Destiny's Child before, and so we got a call, and it was like, "Your turn, step up." And we were like, "Yeah, this is a train."
Oh, that's great.
We got to,
Did
like,
you
hang
guys
out
get
with
to
them
know
next day.
them? Yeah. Did you get to
I
kind
mean,
of, sort of, not
I
really?
wouldn't say we got to like know them. We got to
Yeah.
hang out with them multiple
Yeah.
times. And
Yeah.
we would be so excited to hang out with them. We'd be like, let's sing for you guys. They'd be like, okay. And we'd sing for them, and they'd get
Yeah.
real into it
Yeah.
and get excited and
And
ask
then
for
they'd be
different
like,
things.
"See ya.
Yeah. And they'd be like, no, leave. We're tired. We'd be
Yeah.
like, okay.
We're getting on our bus."
Yeah, exactly.
What about Beyonce? Any time with her ever as a
Yeah,
kid?
for sure, for sure.
What was that like back then?
She was so cool. She was always so kind and humble and cool. And,
Mm-hmm.
there are just people that you meet in the world of entertainment where you're just like, man, I am glad that you are in the position that you are in, because you're a role model for everyone else in the world of entertainment. She was one of those people.
Were they
Very
all
cool.
out of Houston? Like, did they all come out of Houston? That same church? Or
They
whatever,
initially
where Beyonce
did. I don't know if, because they ended up like adding and then removing multiple people along the way. I don't know
Yeah.
if all those people ended up from Houston, but the core original group, came
Yeah.
from Houston.
The band lasted only but a few years. 2001, you guys break up, correct?
Yeah, uh-huh.
What caused the breakup? And
It was me. It was me because there was a wave, like we were riding a wave of already successful boy bands.
Right.
They had already been out for years before us, way ahead of us in the game. And to be real, better than us. I think that we were great, but like it's hard to compete with somebody like
Yeah.
NSYNC. They were just like, Backstreet Boys is good, but like to me, the level of like talent and like performanceship that NSYNC had was like totally, totally amazing. But I just knew that, and we could feel that the wave was starting to kind of like, whatever, peter out, I guess you could say. And I was getting some offers from, my solo music, because I had been playing guitar and writing songs for years, and people were like, you should do this, and I was like, yeah, I should do that. Because for me, it was a dream to perform on stage in front of that many people, but then I get off stage and be like, but it's not my music.
Yeah.
Somebody else is writing it. I'm dancing around on stage. I don't want to be dancing around on stage. Like I did it, but that's not my thing, man.
biggest
Like,
hit you guys
performing's-
had?
We had one. It was, I would give you everything in my heart that I have. Love you more than anything in this world.
Keep going. I can't tell that apart from any
Baby,
other boy
there
band
is
song.
nothing
Keep going.
I wouldn't do.
Excellent.
If you were my girl.
Yep, I remember it well. Well done. By
You
the
don't
way.
have to say that.
No, I do. I do
you
remember. That. Oh yes,
We
'cause
got some spins on the radio.
I knew a few people that liked that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might have been
They
one
played
of them.
it at the mall, man. I remember ice skating to that at the
Oh yeah,
Galleria.
nice,
for sure.
nice.
So J Mack, during that time, or is it after that time you started the acting side of your life? Is that's always been and the Cost Me On, but
Right.
you were doing that after the band broke up. Then you started doing shows like Family, and then some movies came along, right?
Yeah, it was cool, man. It was like a Hollywood dream. I was performing out my own music, which that was really the dream, was for me to be performing my music in front of 20,000 people and stuff like that. And it never got to that place, but I did get some really cool opportunities along the way that in my mind were going to support that dream. And I ended up an agent at like one of the top 3 agencies in the world saw me performing, and she was like, "You should be an actor." And I was like, "Yeah, if it's gonna help my music career, let's go." You know?
Yeah. Do they say that? Do they kind of recommend that? Like
they did.
Like, because now you have like a lot of people who are actors, then they go to the music thing much more than you see like musicians going actors.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all kind of like feeds into the same like promotion machine, Yeah. You're just getting exposure and getting out there, as long as they're the right kind of projects, you know. If you're trying to be like a really like dark and legitimate
Greg Allman plays a good bad guy, man, all the time.
Yeah, like that's really cool. But then, if you're playing like teen bop TV shows or something like that, and then you got like some like kind of dark hardcore band, that doesn't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But they really can promote each other. And
it doesn't take you into a cast in a sitcom called Like Family that well if you're playing that dark arc
exactly. It was a goofy show. It was a really fun show, man. It was like the premise of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but it was white kid and his mom moving with a black family, and that was kind of pushing the envelope at the time. Modern Family hadn't come out yet and stuff like that, so we were kind of doing something. And what was really cool about the show is that it didn't like overtly focus on the race thing. It was just kind of a thing, and it focused on kind of the beauty and support of family. And honestly, working on a sitcom was one of the most fun things I've ever done in my life.
Really?
And if that show went on forever, I would have stayed on that show forever.
Oh, seriously?
It was a blast, dude.
Out in California, dude, out in LA?
Yeah, we actually filmed on Universal Studios lot.
Yeah.
And then literally like right next to us, there were some fences that we would jump to go into Universal Studios, the theme park. And so the little 13-year-old boy on the show and I would jump the fence and go ride a ride and come back and film.
Oh, no kidding?
It was a dream,
But
dude.
it was like down the hill, right? Like when you take the big
Exactly.
escalators like down in that area.
You're
of Universal
exactly
theme
right.
park.
It's amazing that you actually know
well,
that.
we
but-
just went to the Universal Studios. I just kind of remember like this is a really long escalator, and I guess that down in that area is where they
I'm
actually
guessing
do
that
exactly
fence
where it
has
is.
been fixed substantially.
maybe
risen.
not. I
Yes.
stuck into the Like Family set and played a kid actor for a while.
He guest starred on my show on
Yes.
accident.
And then you got the call up to the big leagues. You get cast in a little movie called Fat Albert.
Yeah, with Kenan Thompson, man. It was
Kenan
so
Thompson.
cool. And I talked about earlier how like Beyonce was one of those people that just like kind of inspires others to be like the best version of yourself despite your success. That was Kenan, man. It was like 110 degrees outside shooting in the valley north of LA.
Right.
He's got a fat suit on. Everybody else is complaining about how hot it was. And he was like, guys, do you know how lucky we are to be here right now? And you're like, you're right, Kenan. You're right.
I know
bad for
somebody who
complaining.
does that.
Who's
He's
that?
just always happy like that.
This guy?
Who are you talking about?
This
Oh.
guy?
Have you noticed that?
I do. I like that about him.
Yeah.
Speaking of hot, it is kind of hot in here all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so Fat Albert does really well. You play the white kid in the show, which is interesting but you just mentioned
I'm just always the token white guy.
token
That was
white
like my
guy.
niche
Yep.
in LA.
Right.
That's
right.
good.
So how many different things do you do until you reach the pinnacle where there's another thing coming in your life that led you to wear this
So
uniform?
really what happened is that I did the TV show, I did the movie, I did some other guest spots on TV shows, but I signed, which I don't even know if this exists now. This was like during the golden era of Hollywood, but they just like had so much money, they would throw contracts at people to not work for other networks. So Warner Brothers paid me to not do other TV shows. And I was like, okay.
Who struck that? Was your mom your manager? Like, did she like get that?
I
from
wish,
the
man, we could have
stuff?
kept that in the family. No,
Yeah.
no, it was like a big time LA agency, and they
Yeah.
took their cut. Don't you worry.
Oh, yeah.
But they negotiated this big, 6-figure contract for me as like a 19-year-old to not work for any other
Oh, wow.
network. And the idea was though that they were going to find me a job on their network, and they didn't. So I ended up sitting around getting paid for nothing. Everybody my age was like, dream job, but for
Yeah.
me, you can see I got a lot of energy. I want to put it into something. I want to like better myself every day. And man, I kind of sat on my hands for 8 months and I
No
was
good for you.
miserable. I was miserable and I was distracting myself from that misery by lifting weights, by skateboarding, by surfing, by doing all of these physical things and writing as much music as I could. And then I broke my hand skateboarding. and took all of that physical distraction away. And it was like, look at your life, son. And I had a total quarter life crisis.
How old? Yeah, you're like 25 or
20.
something?
I was 20.
No kidding.
Yeah, quarter life crisis at 20. But I guess I'd done a lot of living before then, So it was like I hit it a little bit
But
early.
then was it like, all right, time to pack up, LA's over?
Yep.
Like,
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it. Honestly, I was on the phone with my mom, and she just told me, man, like she could just hear it in my voice how sad I was. And I just ended up crying on the phone in a ball on the floor. And she goes, "It's okay to come home, son."
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
That was powerful. That's
Yeah,
what I needed to hear. That's
Yeah.
what I needed to hear. But I was
Yeah.
like, but if I'm coming home, what am I going to do? Because my whole life was this like uphill journey. Like I'm fighting for this thing. There's this like end goal. And like, how can I just have this mountain to climb my whole life and then have no mountain? It was like, it was too depressing to think about that. And I honestly kept hearing all these cool stories from my sister who worked in an ER. And she's told me all these amazing stories of life and death and like deep connections with other people and doctors like jumping on the ground to stop like crazy bleeding from this like stab wound in the neck and all this stuff. And I was like, I think I want to like live that.
Yeah.
I think I want to like live those stories, but how the hell do I get there? And that was the mountain. And I was like, I never saw myself honestly graduating from high school. I wanted to get my GED and be done. Fortunately, my mom was like, you're taking the SAT and you're graduating from your private school that we spent all this money for in Country Day. And thank God I did. But that was my mountain, man. And so I decided to go into medicine.
And that was like before any of those shows, ER and stuff. Where were those fitting in? You weren't looking at those as like, you were really just listening to your sister's real life deal, right? Like,
I never watched any of those shows, and I still really haven't watched any of those shows. People always ask me like, how much of those shows do you watch? I'm like, I don't know, man. I get enough medicine from every single day. I want to experience other things.
Where did we attend medical school?
So I went to UT Southwestern in Dallas.
Yeah, it's just not the best one or anything. So good on you. Yeah.
It was a really great school. It was a very competitive med school as well, which is great because I think it made me a better doctor because, I don't want to brag, but I felt like I was a rock star going through TCU and taking all my pre-med classes. I felt real good taking all those tests and everything. And then, man, I went to UT Southwestern. I was not the smartest kid there. And it was humbling. But it drove me to be a better student and to be a better doctor.
Tell us some of the difficulties with med school that you just mentioned.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was very difficult at first to be taking these tests, and it was very apparent like where you were, on the kind of bell curve, and I was not at the top anymore, and I didn't do bad by any means, but I was like kind of running with the pack for the first time in my life, and I don't mean to say be conceited with that, but I was running with the pack, man, and I was eating some humble pie there, but it drove me to study harder and do better, and I ended up doing very, very well actually in the long run, but at first I got a kick in the tail big time.
Well, you were coming from being the star out in LA, man. Like, I mean, that's not that far of that's pretty understandable.
Yeah.
Was you think that whole acting thing helped you in that regard or set you back?
I don't think it helped me academically necessarily. I mean, there was a ton of memorizing that I was doing, especially when I was on the TV show, because I'd wake up in the morning, there'd be a brand new script on my doorstep and I'd have to memorize it and we'd be shooting it at like 3 p.m., Right. So it was like there's a lot of very important quick memorization that you had to do and then you'd have to execute on the spot. And there was a lot of that in med school and everything, but there was a lot of just like remembering how to be a student again and everything. And I experienced that through TCU where I did undergrad as well. But med school was tough, man, but it made me grow a lot. And where I really started to shine in med school was when I was in person. I wasn't just like a kid at a desk with a number 2 pencil, back in the day when you'd actually like fill out, scantrons and stuff like that. I'm sure it's all computerized now. Right. But I'd go into the hospitals and it'd be all about like how well are you connecting with patients? How well are you coming up with plans for your patients? How well are you connecting with the team and supporting your medical team as a whole? And I was really good at that stuff. And so that's when I started really separating myself from the pack and being extremely successful again in my heart and my mind.
So you graduate, you do residency, you get your first job. And where's the first job?
Yeah. So I do after med school, I do residency at UT Southwestern Parkland. It's the biggest single site volume emergency department in the country. See the craziest of the crazy things, from traumas to tumors that people from Mexico have ignored for 5 years and they come up and it's like this massive thing growing out of their face. And they're like, I was told to keep driving north until I saw La bola en el cielo, which is like the ball in the sky. You think about the Dallas skyline, right?
Yeah.
And so literally people would drive up from Mexico to get care at Parkland. And so I just saw and experienced some incredible stuff there. And then I started working with a company called EMC. It's a staffing company for emergency rooms, mostly Texas Health ERs, which like I love Texas Health and I love my doctor group. So like big props to THR and to EMC of Team Health. They just recently got bought out. Because my job rocks, and I'm super fortunate.
Where do you currently work?
I'm mostly at Texas Health Southwest here in Fort Worth, and Texas Health Alliance a little bit north of Fort Worth.
Oh yeah.
The typical day for you, J Mack, at the ER.
Well, the typical day changes so much because sometimes I'm a 6 a.m. shift, sometimes I'm an 11 a.m. shift, sometimes at 3 p.m., sometimes at 8 p.m., sometimes I show up to work at 11 p.m. Like I put my kids to bed. I've like already watched some stuff on Netflix, and then I'm going into work.
Because of being on call or just because they need you kind of thing?
No, because that's how an ER schedule is. Every ER doctor works different shifts pretty much. Unless like you just love being the night guy, which like nobody loves being the night guy. You kind of like spread the pain a little bit, you know? And so sometimes you're the morning guy, sometimes you're the afternoon, sometimes you're evening, sometimes you're overnight. And we do a little bit of each of those every single month. And but it's cool though because the ER has a totally different vibe at 2 a.m. than it does, at like 10 a.m. than it does at like 6 p.m. You know,
fair to say you've saved lives, you've lost lives, you've seen probably everything in between.
Yeah.
All these experiences led you to a little thing called TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that's really cool about you. You are a very big advocate of sharing experiences. Heartful stuff, absurd stuff, real life stuff through your posts. Currently, I see you have 422,000 followers on TikTok.
Nothing.
Well done.
That's nothing. I got boy bands with more than that.
Yes. We have 4, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Period.
Awesome,
like that's not 4,000 or he's not. It's not 4K. You know.
You deal with things. These are some of the things that I just grabbed from watching. I've seen a whole bunch of them, but you discussed how Robin Williams really died, which I thought was really neat. Events inside the ER, medical questions that people have always wondered, suicide, substance abuse. So how does this all work for you in your brain, and what made you do this thing?
Man, a lot of things are inspired by real world experiences, whether they're inside the ER or they're outside of the ER. Things that, you know, heartbreaking diagnoses that I've given people, things that I can just tell. I keep getting asked a question over and over, whether it's online or in person. I'm like, people want to know this.
Yeah.
And I can give a really unique perspective on it because not only do I know the answer, I have seen that answer in human beings for almost 10 years in the emergency department, which is crazy to think of because somewhere inside of me, I'm still that kid. You know, like when you're of age and you're showing your ID to the person at the liquor store or the grocery store or whatever to buy alcohol.
So proud.
You're proud, but also a little piece inside you is like you're a little nervous still, you know? Like even to this day, I'm 38 years old and I'm still like, play cool, Slaughter. You know what I mean? Like that person that's like so excited and feels very lucky to be there is still totally there in my shifts every day. And so I can see it from that perspective. And it's even enhanced that perspective through my videos on TikTok and on Instagram. Because I'm trying to break things down in a very simple way to where people can experience it, whether they're in the medical field or whether they're not in the medical field.
Fantastic. How would you describe to somebody like us, the layperson? And if you can't, I understand, but something tells me you probably can. But how would you describe what death is like, to see it all the time? How does it feel in your mind for people who don't really understand what that means, what it looks like? Is there a way to describe
the hardest thing about experiencing death on a daily basis is keeping your emotions.
Yeah.
You talk to people. We called it the 1,000 patient stare because, you know, you've heard like the 1,000-yard stare that soldiers get in their eyes. And you start residency as an emergency doctor and you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and you're excited to go to work. And then you see the third-year residents and there is a different look in their eyes. They've seen so much death. They've seen so much suffering. And my attending and I talked about it because some patients would be like, why can't you understand my pain? And I overheard him say to her, if I felt all of my patients' pain every single day, I would have killed myself a long time ago. And that's a really intense thing to say, but it's true. When you're a truly empathic human being, the ER is a very brutal, numbing environment. And it did that to me.
You know where I had a similar experience on a little lighter level?
Oh, yeah.
When we worked into Babies R Us, man, before we had a kid. And you see those parents who do have the kid,
exact same thing.
who have the kid in the buggy, and you're like, are they zombies, man? Like, what is wrong with those people? Those people are so washed out looking with that kid. We're all like fresh, like, let's go do the shopping list.
It's different
but
when
it's
you're in the
probably-
trenches.
Yeah,
It's different. Yeah, that's like the 1,000 day of having a newborn stare, like the 1,000 day stare.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, but for sure. But just to answer your question, the most important thing, just to any medical providers that are listening or watching this right now, is keeping your emotions open. I think, and I lost my emotions for a long time. I was so burnt out from all of these overnights and weekends and suffering that I experienced. But through a lot of these videos and through really opening up to my friends and my family about the traumatic experiences that I've had, I've regained my emotions, and it's a beautiful thing. Because if you don't, people, it's almost like a merit badge that you can, create this like wall in between you and suffering. And I thought that was cool when I first started emergency. And but that wall will be present outside of the hospital too. It's only a matter of time. Not only that you're not connecting with your patients, the patients don't want that. The patients want you to be there with them in that moment and with the gravity of those diagnoses and those experiences, but you're also going to miss out on all the beautiful emotions of having children and having a wife and having a family and all this stuff.
But I think, there's a real fine line there where they want you to be strong too, empathetic and understanding.
Yeah.
But there's a part of them looking at you going, man, I don't need you to break down and cry with me now. I need you to be
that's
who
part of
I
the
need
art.
you to be.
That's part of the art of medicine is to know like when it's okay and when they want you to cry with them and when they need you to just be strong and step up to the plate and save their life. And and that's the art. That's what separates a great emergency doctor from a novice emergency doctor.
Greatest ER story that involves you. Can you share the best? Is there one that sticks out that's just like we know you're doing great stuff, J Mack. Anything that really stands out among others?
I've had a lot of amazing experiences through the years, but just like one of the most memorable ones that I have is when, and I told you this one, man. I told you this one actually when we were.
That's why I'm asking.
We were having some whiskey. And so basically.
Wait, doctors drink?
Never.
I didn't know that.
Ever.
ER doctors?
We always limit ourselves to. Anyways, where I'm in the ER and I heard nurse to triage, which is never a good thing. That means something bad is happening that is not in the emergency department. It's in front of the emergency department. And so this old nurse that's like gone into retirement has come out of retirement somehow. It's the guy that like runs out there. And, this granddaughter pulls up with her grandfather in the passenger seat and he's buckled in, but he is so weak when the nurse opens up the door, he starts to fall out, and the only thing that stops him from falling is the seatbelt. And the nurse kind of calls for help, and somebody comes out, and they get that guy and they put him in a wheelchair and they start wheeling him through. And after 11 years of training to become an emergency doctor, my most important job in that moment is that man is rolling through our emergency department so weak that he can't even hold his head up. His head is like falling off to the side of the wheelchair out a full 2 feet or something like that. And my most important job is just to hold his head up so it doesn't hit the corner of a wall and we break his cervical spine or something nasty like that. And so we get him into the room and his oxygen levels are low and his blood pressure is low and his heart rate is high and he's dying right in front of us. He's the closest to death that I really get to see people or do see people. And what he ended up having basically is something called a tension pneumothorax, which is when there is pressure building up outside of the lung that is not only collapsing the lung more and more with every futile breath that the person takes, but it also compresses the veins, the blood vessels that lead back to the heart, so you can no longer get blood flow to your heart. You don't get blood flow to your heart. The heart can't squeeze blood to the rest of your body. Super deadly condition. And the only thing that can fix it is releasing the pressure. And so there's pressure outside of the lung, and the only thing that's keeping it from essentially getting relieved is a scalpel in your finger. And so I took a scalpel and I cut into that man's side of his chest, and I didn't even have time to call for the proper tools to do it. Usually you'd use these things called Kellys to push through the muscle wall, and because you don't want to stab into somebody's chest cavity all the way. You're going to hit their lung. You're going to hit
power tools.
Yeah. And so, you cut down, but you don't go through that last layer. And so to get through that last layer, I used my finger. Fortunately, I had time to throw in a glove, and I pushed my finger through that man's chest wall, and I pulled my finger down, and the air evacuated, and you can just hear it go.
like popping of a balloon or something.
Popping a balloon, and you're releasing all of that pressure that was compressing the lungs, that was compressing the blood vessels leading back to the heart. All of a sudden, he gets blood flow back to his heart. All of a sudden, that lung re-expands. All of his vitals normalize, and he goes, "What happened?" And I'm like, "You almost died, dude."
Yeah.
Oh my
Does
God.
that air smell? Does it have like an odor?
I didn't really get my face up in it, so I don't know.
Just wondering if it's like, it's body air, man, or something like that.
I'm sure it had a little tint of something.
You try to put on a mask, even pre-COVID. You try to put on a mask before you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
what is it like for someone in your position to deliver news? You mentioned off air some people that you have to tell them they have AIDS or they have cancer and inevitably that they're going to die. What is there a simple way to? I know there's not, but is there a way that someone in your position does that to comfort them in a way? Is there any particular way you do that?
Just to be present, man. The most important thing is to be present, to like pull on your human side and push away your medical side, because when you get like very clinical and you're focusing on all these medical details, like I could go into a room and tell people details about the cellular mechanisms behind this disease and the prognosis and all this stuff, but really in that moment I personally want to be as little of a doctor as I can be, and as much of just a caring, empathic human being as I can, and be in that room and answer any specific questions they have, but try not to load them up with too much information at the same time. And those are the experiences where I really feel like I've done a good job at the art of being a doctor, like we were talking about before.
And maybe not the best time to introduce the Sons of Harmony background of your life, right?
Did I tell you I was in a boy band?
Sorry, that was bad, wasn't it?
Well,
I just think of those ads where it's like, we're going to get through this together, right?
Yeah.
It's my second surgery. We're going to do this together.
Yeah, totally.
Or whatever.
Well, great job delivering the message that so many people have found and now enjoy. So you do such a clever, wonderful, warm way. Excuse me for the stutter there, but you make it personal when it's just a general story if somebody wants to know. But great job doing that.
Thank you.
Let's talk for a second about this lady named Rebecca.
Yeah,
you met her young in age, but she is your wife and the mother of your 3 children. Let's talk about her for a sec.
Man, my wife is just an amazing person. Honestly, like I feel like I have been so fortunate in so many ways. When you like look at my story and all the cool things that I've really been able to experience, I'm very aware of that. But man, like the most fortunate experience that I had was running into Rebecca again, 15 years, 20 years after maybe we first met. So we met in first grade at Fort Worth Country Day on the playground. We chase each other around, and but we obviously we're too young to like be a thing or anything like that. But she was on my radar, even though like I wasn't really like into girls at
like
that
your
time.
whole life. Then?
Yeah, kind of,
Yeah.
But she ended up going to a different school long term, and I'd like see her, think about her every now and then. But she ended up pursuing her passions just like I did. Ballet. She's an incredible ballet dancer. She danced with the School of American Ballet in New York. She danced with the Paris Opera Ballet, did this like really exclusive summer program in Vail. And it was her and like maybe like 10 or 12 other girls from the whole country that got chosen to do this program. And she really, really gave it her all, just like I really gave it my all in entertainment. And we both kind of ended up making more like practical, decisions with our long-term careers. But we ended up reconnecting just randomly, like at a bar. Thankfully, I saw her and I was like, Rebecca Shaw, and she was like, huh? And I was like, I remember you from first grade.
Did she remember you?
Yeah, she did remember me. And I was like, you got real hot. And I kind of stalked her on Facebook and ended up hanging out. And we fell in love through our mutual passions in the arts. and through music. We would go to all these cool shows, and that was the way that I was like reconnecting, with my passion and my love for music was like with her during med school, like one of the most like trying times of my life, and one of kind of the most like emotionless times too, where I'm like this just machine studying all day. At one point I was studying 15 hours a day, dude. 15 hours a day for a month and a half for this damn test that you take that kind of determines what kind of doctor you can be.
Yeah.
And throughout that, she was the thing that kept me sane and that kept me in touch with my passion and my emotion. And man, she's just like, she is one of the most selfless humans that I think exists on the planet. And people are like, how are you able to do so many things at the same time? It's because of her and her support. Right?
Yeah.
And her love.
Well,
man.
great job.
So I'm thinking of a number, and you tell me what this number is. I'm thinking like 10 to 12, and guess what that number is?
10 to 12 on the hot scale. It's like 10 out of 10. She's a 12 out of 10.
No, it's the cups of coffee or Red Bulls she must drink a day to
keep up with me.
Yeah. Did she have
it wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. Is she as energetic, or is it the
No,
same?
she is not. She has a lot of depth of emotion and depth of passion, but no, she doesn't attack so many different things at the same time. That I do.
Okay. Let's dig a little deeper into your family tree.
Yeah.
Who the heck is Colonel C.C. Slaughter?
This is crazy, man. This is you hear stories about your ancestors growing up and stuff like that, and I totally did not appreciate what he was able to do. But as I got older, I was like, wait, who was that guy that owned millions of acres out west?
Yeah.
And there's this dude, Colonel C.C. Slaughter. No joke. C.C. stands for Christopher Columbus.
Oh,
No
wow.
kidding.
So Colonel Christopher Columbus Slaughter.
Any relation to Sergeant Slaughter, the professional
No,
wrestler,
I wish. I
think?
told people that he was my uncle, though, and if you messed with me, he'd come and get you. Sergeant Slaughter from the WWF.
Is that
was
what it
before he
was?
was even WWE.
Oh, yeah.
And then he was like such a popular, like, professional wrestler that he became a G.I. Joe character as well.
Oh, that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
C.C. Slaughter, though, that sounds like a good country song, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Maybe we should write a country song. And
down
now
with
I know
that.
that you play pedal steel.
Oh, JW, my fame has exceeded the show.
Let's move on.
So Colonel C.C. Slaughter, this guy, was an extremely driven individual, and I'll always, always, always be in his shadow no matter what I do in my life. But Mando, millions of acres out west, was at one point, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but he was the highest, he was the highest tax-paying individual in Texas. Maybe you needed better tax attorneys, but that just goes to show you the level of wealth that he'd accumulated, the level of success. He founded Baylor Medical.
Right.
Wow.
So Bumpsy in Dallas, Baylor University Medical Center, he founded the first hospital there, and was, he had a quote of saying that the Lord gave me a hand to take and a heart to give.
Yeah.
And he was a huge philanthropist as well. And so that's part of what drives me a little bit in the nonprofit world as well, man. I'll never be able to kind of fill those shoes, but what an inspiration.
Some might disagree with that statement. You're well on your way, sir. Another one worth mentioning, J.M. Zachary. I think your namesake, right?
I was named after this guy. Such an interesting human being. So a very successful oil businessman, was the business partner for Mr. Penrose, which was just like when you read like the legends of like oil and gas in Texas, he's one of those guys. And so my great grandfather was the partner, literally would share a partner desk, this massive wood desk that I would study for med school on, right? With Mr. Penrose. And he, I'm his namesake, and his name was J.M. Zachary. And the interesting thing is this guy who gave me so much, from, braces when I needed them when I was 11 and 12, to my first car, to making sure that I went all the way through private school, is actually not my blood relative.
Yeah.
So my great-grandfather, who I am named after, is this like patriarchal, giving human being that adopted my grandmother and married my great-grandmother. And I owe so much to. So somewhere in between the inspiration of my great-great-great-grandfather, Colonel C.C. Slaughter, and my great-grandfather, the original J Mack, I feel called to have to give back. It's like mandatory that I try to give back to the people around me, because I have been given more opportunities than I could ever provide for myself or my community. And so I have to do everything in my power to try to pay that forward.
Well
That's
said.
nice.
Okay, with the few minutes we have
Gratitude.
left, J Mack, let's talk about some of the philanthropies you've been involved with. One particular, Music Meets Medicine, MMM. It's a 501(c)(3). Tell us about that.
So Music Meets Medicine was actually inspired through my experience with my mother's breast cancer treatments. My mother had stage 2 breast cancer, went through chemo, double mastectomy, reconstruction. In total, she had something like 20 surgeries over the course of a few years there, and radiation. And her first chemo treatments were just like so dark and depressing.
Were you in medical school at the time, or where were you in your
I had already
things?
decided to become a doctor, though, which was kind of interesting. But it was my first experience kind of through a patient's eyes and through a family member's eyes.
Yeah.
And there was this one treatment in particular that was so toxic, it turned your fingernails and your toenails black. And so to try to counteract that, you'd put your fingernails and toenails in ice and it would vasoconstrict. It constricts your blood vessels to where the toxins that you're putting in your body to kill yourself, but also kill the cancer, can't necessarily get delivered. So, so you think about putting ice on your head as a kid. You lasted what, like 2 minutes? Seconds. And you were like, ah! My mom has my willpower. So she'd put her fingers and toes in ice for an hour straight. And as a 20-something-year-old self-centered kid, I'm looking at my mom going through this terrible experience. And I'm, you know, for the first time in my life, trying to take the spotlight off myself and be like, okay, I have to do something. I have to help this amazing human being in my life. And my sisters and I brought our instruments to the next chemo session.
Yeah.
And it just like turned into the most like happy,
seriously?
joyous,
That's
like
sweet,
powerful
man.
experience
Yeah.
of my life up until that point. And after that, we brought our instruments every single time, and people in wheelchairs would roll by and be like, will you come see us next? And we're like, sure. And so we kind of turned into like music therapists before music therapy existed. Music therapy wasn't really a thing. The hospitals were still so like cold and emotionless. And we didn't have like kind of the emotional intelligence and the leadership that we are starting to really have now. And so we were one of the first nonprofits that focused on bringing music into the hospitals. I was inspired by those experiences to try to do that. And so what we do is we donate instruments and free teaching lessons to kids at children's hospitals. And
so was that where it started at Cook's, like kind of
it
through
all,
that?
yeah, it all started through my experiences with my mom's chemo and then spread to different hospitals in the area. We've supported music therapy at Cook's. We've had lots of volunteer. We even actually at Dallas Children's Hospital, we donated a jam room. We raised $150,000 to create this badass space to where patients can leave their treatment areas, be in a treatment-free zone, and just lose themselves in an instrument, whether that's their thing or whether they've never done it before. We try to have what's called embarrassment-free exploration options, to where they can put on a little headset and mess around an electronic drum set. Nobody can hear but them really what's going on.
Yeah.
So
jam out
great.
on a guitar and only they can experience
J-Dub and I
it.
do that with our 2-man silent raves. Have
Silent
you heard of this?
raves,
Like
yes.
where we just do our headphones and just dance.
Indeed. That's
sounds
fantastic,
beautiful.
fantastic thing. And the second one that I'm most familiar with and a big fan of, the Slaughter Family Arts Awards, which just concluded here recently,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
This is a deal that I really love. Please explain.
So basically the Slaughter Family Arts, you know, since my wife and I kind of joined forces in life, you know, we just talked about how much we needed to give back to the arts community and how many opportunities that we were given, right? And so we talked about giving out scholarships because she danced on scholarship for years and years, and that was a huge part of her ability to succeed in life. And we always wanted to give out awards as well. And so we were like, well, let's just like give out some awards and some little scholarships to some kids at one school. And then like, I go to meet with this person. Her name is Melody Hallback, and she's the person who ran the theater department at Fort Worth Country Day for like 20 years. She happened to be retiring, right?
Yeah.
Right at the time that we're getting really jazzed about this idea. And really, we went to Country Day and saw an incredible show there. We just saw the level of talent and dedication and heart that these kids have. And we were like, why wait another 10 years? Like, let's do this now. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And so I met with Melody Hallback and my wife, and instead of doing one school, we were like, let's do 5 schools, let's do 6 schools. Yeah. And so at this point, we've given away over $30,000 in scholarships, somewhere over like 40 different awards. We just had a big award ceremony at I Am Terrell here in Fort Worth, which has a gorgeous, state-of-the-art, like $50 million amphitheater. Who knew? And it's obviously something that's very near and dear to our heart. It's only our 3rd year, and we're just going to keep going up from there.
Sweet. And people can support you if they want to go.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Please join.
Go to sfawards.org or go to musicmeetsmedicine.org.
Beautiful.
And donate and support these organizations, and we're going to put your dollars to beautiful use to support our community.
J Mack, you exude confidence. Exude it in a healthy, awesome way. Does anything make you nervous? Does anything get to you?
This is going to be an intense one, but like when babies are dying, that scares the pants off of me, you know?
Fair.
Like I deal with like old people dying all the time. Every now and then it's like a 20-something-year-old and I'm like, you know, and it kind of tightens that sphincter there. But there's nothing more intense as an adult ER doctor. Granted, we train in pediatrics as well, but our day-to-day is in adults. But when somebody's dying, and they go to the first hospital. And so you can take care of some very, very, very sick children. And that makes me a little nervous.
You know, on that note, I must say, your name has such a dark connotation of slaughter, right? Like, and you are the antithesis of your name, man.
I don't see anything creepy and dark about Dr. Slaughter. I don't know what
you're the brightest light out of that name, so it's a really cool kind of deal.
This guy is an example of what is possible with positivity and following your dreams and your passion. I made this not to sound corny, but you followed the path that you set out for yourself and you made it all happen. So kudos to you, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Before we go, he's got a last question for you.
Okay.
This one ought to be the best answer we ever heard. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Please.
So no family, right? Like, I mean, and it's not because we don't love our families and stuff. We just try to make this purposely hard. Best day of your life, like all family stuff aside. Direct and, you know, that
kids and all that. No kids.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, while the best day of my life would absolutely include my entire family, man, some of the best times of my life were when I was in Costa Rica. We talked about surfing a little bit when our sound was out, but I was in Costa Rica for a month and a half. I'd wake up in the morning, I would surf first thing in the morning, watch the sunrise, get some sun, do something physical, exciting, and like zen and relaxing all at the same time. I would go and exercise my brain by relearning Spanish because I knew that I wanted to be able to communicate with my patients in their primary language. And especially here in Texas, so many patients can only speak Spanish. And so I'd go for 4 hours, and my buddy, who was also a doctor and wanted the same thing, to be able to communicate with his patient, we would talk only in Spanish to these like medical Spanish teachers there, leave there, go back to surfing, have a sunset session, and then after that, write music and record music for the rest of the day.
Oh my
and we do that for about a month and a half.
Terrible, does it?
No.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your life with us. I want to thank our good friend, your good friend, Kevin Donahue, who introduced us.
Who's the man?
Hell of a guy. He's sitting in our audience now. Thank you, Kevin. Love you too, Kev. Thank you, Captex Bank, for making all this happen.
Yeah.
J Mack Slaughter.
Thank
Dr.
you,
J Mack Slaughter. Awesome job, man.
FORTitude or